Well, hello and welcome to the Discover Dayton podcast, the show that's all about the Gem City's past, present, and future. My name is Arch Grieve and I'm your host, and today I'm excited to talk to Dayton poet Latisha Ellis. Latisha describes herself as a gay, black, female, former felon who happens to be an amazing poet, and we talk a lot about her work and how her identity impacts it. She's a published author who you can find on Amazon, so join me in my conversation with her, which I will warn you has some adult themes and some adult language, as well as discussion of suicide, so fair warning. But I hope you'll stick around to listen, so please stay tuned. Well, hello, and welcome to the show, and thanks so much for talking with me today.
Well, it's extremely a pleasure, my guy. It's an honor to be here with you. You're handsome. Look at that facial hair. Love it.
I appreciate it. Well, to preface this interview a bit for the audience, I first saw you while you were on stage in April at the Dayton Poetry Slam that I went to at the Yellow Cab, and I loved your work so much that I asked you on the show that night to be a guest, and I'm really grateful that you agreed. But I was really intrigued before I even got there because you were the headliner for the evening, and the Facebook event, I think, described you as a gay black woman felon who's awesome poet. And so I'm wondering, can you start off maybe talk a little bit about your identity and how that impacts, how and what you write about in your work?
Yes. Okay, but before we jump into that delicious ship called intersectionality, I was saying something in the beginning. So do you look like you wash your beard, correct? It looks clean. Do you use oil and beard lotion?
Sometimes.
Okay, so to all my people who wear facial hair out there, if you like the vagina persuasion, I don't know how to word that. If you're into people who have vaginas, the thing about beards, right? If I like to tell men and people who grow beards, if your beard itches your neck, imagine what that feels like down there.
That's a great point. Yeah,
it's a very sensitive area. So it's not just about being hygienic. You also want a soft beard because if you're going down there, they're going to feel beard oil. So shampoo your beards, condition it, and then more beard oil and moisturizer. Well, no, moisturizer and then beard oil. Keeps it, the oil will lock the moisture in, but it's important. Keep that beard soft. Trust me, if it itches your neck, imagine what it feels like on the genitals. So with that being said, so when Jonathan, shout out to John, I can't even say his last name. I want to say Galilibisi. God, I'm sorry, Jonathan. Okay, it's a very Galilino, whatever. He's very Italian. He messaged me. He's like, "What do you want your bio to be?" And I was just like, I'm not really good at, believe it or not, as a poet, my brain's just like, I don't want to write a bunch of stuff. This seems annoying. So I was like, let me put all the hard stuff out there, because if you don't like any of this, you're not going to come. So we just weed out the people. I'm black, I'm gay, I'm a felon, and I'm a woman. So intersectionality is, it's a big thing. It's a big thing because it allows people to understand oppression and other people's suffering. And as a Black woman, we're like the lowest on the totem pole. But because of that, we're hyper aware of all types of oppression. And so a lot of my work, it's kind of funny that you asked about like how that affects my writing. I used to have been told that I had this one woman said I had the gift of foresight or hindsight or something like that. I don't know, so many sights. And it was because I was able to write from a place. There's a poem I wrote when I was 23 called Bliss. In the book, I'm pretty sure you read it. And it was from the perspective of an addict. And I grew up with an addict. I myself am not an addict, but I've been around addicts. And so understand the pain and trials that they go through. I was able to write something from that perspective because I know what suffering looks like. There's also a poem in there called The Boogeyman, I believe. sorry, I haven't. I write my stuff and never and look at it again once it's published. It makes me feel weird.
Sure.
And I think it's called, is it called Klansman? And it's from the perspective of a child, a child seeing Klansmen as boogeymen. Mm-hmm. Because that's what they see. They're monsters. They are monsters. But to them, this is in a child's brain, this is the only logical way to keep your child safe, that, hey, these are the boogeymen. And my dad was born in 1949. Like, you know, my dad was 16 when segregation was kind of ended. Sure. And so, like, I sat there, and because I can understand the oppression and the pain and the fear, I was able to write as if I was some Black girl in the 1940s telling a story about watching their father being hung. Mm-hmm. And it's just like, these stories are important. These poems are important because a lot of people, it's like when I have conversations, so as a person of color and as a Black woman, don't, as a white person, bring up racial issues unless somebody of color does that, because it's traumatic. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? You and I are having a conversation. We could be talking about Ninja Turtles, and then you're just like, man, you guys can't even, you hear about the Crown Act being passed? And it's like, right there, we are being reminded in this moment, like, oh yeah, I forgot that I'm constantly in a state of oppression and fear. When we talk about it, it's because something has occurred, and it's almost like it's allowing us to have what I like to call racial therapy. Something has happened. So now you and I are talking, and I'm just like, you know what, man, you know what's crazy? Like, the fact that it's hard for felons to get a job and also attain housing. And it's all due to the fact that it was systematic, like the system was built the way it was. Right. And then you're like, oh, okay, we can engage in this conversation because something is happening, and me voicing it, me talking about it is allowing me to unpack that trauma while also having an open conversation. But if we're not talking about it, because we never stop living our race, we never stop living our color. Mm-hmm. But if we're not talking about it, that's the moment where we get to breathe. So it's like really important to all my white listeners that, like, when it comes, that's where I was at. Sorry. So, like, it's really important when I write these stories for white people to have conversations with other white people, because I could sit here and talk to you all day, babe, about oppression, this, that, and the third. But it's like, unless it's coming from somebody else that looks like you, it's like listening to a rap song and you're with Black people and you don't say the N-word. You don't say it. But then you're with your white friends and then you say it. It's up to your white friends to say, hey, that's not okay. It's not okay to do it here, and it's not okay to do it in front of anybody. Right. And so by writing, it's almost like a shared experience. You will never know what it feels like to be a Black woman, but you can understand the pain and trials that we go through, and then do the research on your own, and then start having those conversations, because that's the only way that we will propel out of this system, out of oppression, is for people to have the conversation, and not people that look like me have to keep talking about it. Right. So it's just like it plays in, and also in the bio, I did that because I want to make people immediately uncomfortable. Mm-hmm. If you see, and if your first thought was, well, she didn't have to put the word felon, or she didn't have to put that she's Black, or she didn't have to put that she was gay, what is inside you that you need to work on? What internalized problem? Because right then and there, already in poetry, I'm calling you out. Mm-hmm. My bio is calling you out. And so then you're prepared to understand that this is not, I don't also want to be seen as just a Black poet. I want to be a poet who happens to be Black and who happens to be gay, who happens to went to prison. Right. And so, like, a lot of things when it comes to, when I was at the show, I had made a point about not reading poems about Black trauma, because when all we ingest is Black trauma, we remove the humanism from Black people, and then just it's like the only time our voices are heard when we're speaking out against bigotry or pain. I want you to hear poems about how I wear a bonnet, or I want you to hear poems about how proud I am of my first name. But I don't want to sit here and read the poem about Klansmen and talk about watching my daddy swing from the trees, because if you leave my show, if you leave a speaking engagement where I'm at, and the only reason why you thought I was powerful was because I spoke on oppression, am I a poet? Am I moving you? What did you come for? Did you really come to listen and have your mind open, or did you only come to listen to Black trauma? And that's the only way that you can listen, and the only way that you can be active. You shouldn't be activated to do something because you hear trauma. That shouldn't be, oh, wow, I should fight more because like this is what they're going through. We shouldn't have to talk about it for you to know what we're going through. You should just see it and do something. It shouldn't be a reaction. It should just be an action. Mm-hmm. And so that's why like the bio was just the way it was, because I wrote it and it was just like, okay, I'm cool. But then the more I thought about it, like I said, if just like me saying the word, if you don't mind, pussy, if somehow hearing that word makes you uncomfortable, you know what I mean? Why is it uncomfortable? You know how many words there are for the word penis? You already know. Oh my God, there's so many, and nobody cringes at it. But like the word pussy is used so much to not just describe the female anatomy, but women themselves. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? And it's just like, okay, if that makes you uncomfortable, let's talk about that. Why does that make you uncomfortable? So seeing this Black, gay, felon, woman poet, if your first initial is, I don't think I want to go because you read that, what is it that that's in you that you need to work on? So that went really long.
No, that's great. I appreciate it. And I had to say, that was probably one of my, the one you did about the bonnet was probably one of my favorite ones that night. Yeah, absolutely. It was great. Could you kind of talk about it a little bit, actually?
Oh yeah, about bonnet. Yes. Yeah. Oh my God. I love doing that piece. We know, like when I was talking about like the Black women, and a lot of our hair has been demonized, criminalized, and we're culture appropriated. Hairstyles that are on Black women that get called ghetto or ratchet or whatever. If it's seen on somebody that's not Black, it's edgy and it's cool and it's a trend. And it's almost like we become a caricature. You know, Black women, the Black women costume with the oppression sold separately. And so like I growing up as a little Black girl, because like I was doing white people who have curly hair wear bonnets. I'm gonna repeat that. White people with curly hair wear bonnets. The same hatred that is for Black hair is the same Eurocentric logic that causes you not to be able to take care of your own curly hair. Your hair isn't frizzy. Your hair is curly. Your hair has more curls. So if you're listening, look up the hair porosity test and then find out if you have low, high, or medium porosity, because then you can do the LCO method or the LOC method. And I bring that up because in my hair journey, learning to love my hair, my Black hair, when I was helping my best friend, Harry, he's this white man with these beautiful curly locks. And I was teaching him, I was doing his hair, and we were having a moment. And he made a joke about the hot comb. And I was like, don't do that. And he was like, actually, and then he was like, actually, Latisha, I don't think I would ever want the hot comb experience. And I was like, I was going to go into like, yeah, because it burns. And he was like, no, because the only reason why hot combs were invented was due to the fact that straight hair was the better hair. Mm-hmm. And so out of trauma, out of Black trauma, Black women were putting combs onto stoves and then running it through our hair to make it straight. And spoken from the mouth of a white man, I'm just like, I never thought about that. And so growing up, my hair had always been permed. You know, I had braids, braids, sew-in, glue-ins, weave-ins, latchkey, ponytails. But my hair was always relaxed. And a lot of us Black girls, a lot of us Black children, but mostly Black girls, because Black boys get to grow their hair out. And matter of fact, if you're a Black boy or Black man listening to this, learn how to do your damn hair. Stop growing your hair out and expecting the women in your lives to do it. Stop. Be grown-ups. Mm-hmm. And also for white boys too. If you're doing that shit, learn how to do your damn hair. Okay? Women are not here to take care of you. Take care of your hair. And so like, my mom did all this stuff to my hair. And my mom's a twin, and her twin sister had shaved her hair off. And this was, and my Aunt Danita looked super cool. So my mom was like, I'm gonna do it. My mom did it, and she started wearing wigs. Hmm. And I remember my mom's like, I just like wearing wigs because I can change my hairstyle. And from the age of 8 years old, babe, I had never, every wig my mom ever wore was blonde. Okay. My mom wore a blonde wig. My mom also had hazel eye contacts. And I remember looking at her and saying, Mom, why do you do that? And my mom was like, because I want to look good for your daddy. And I remember my dad was like, I like you either way. And my mom was like, shut up, Sylvester. And then I remember looking at my mom and just being like, but I look like you. Mm-hmm. I look like you, and you don't look like you. And right there, especially as a dark-skinned Black girl, watching this dark-skinned Black woman subject herself, water her Blackness down to be accepted. My mom wore blonde wigs, honey blonde, yellow blonde, blonde. I saw her once with not a blonde wig. And it was just like, my mom shaved off her beautiful hair. And we go through so much. There are still laws being passed, babe, that like, for the Crown Act, mm-hmm. just so Black people can we have to have a law to protect our hair. Right. Like, that's insane. Like, people like racism, that's not, oppression is not, whatever. And it's like, there are literal laws that have to be created. In 2013 in Mobile, Alabama, there was a Black woman who was refused a job because she had locks in her hair. She took it all the way to the Supreme Court. And they agreed that it was okay for them to discriminate. And it's like, as Black people, we can't even get jobs. And so like, I was just sitting there, and like the whole stuff that happened, I'm not going to get into it, but like the whole stuff that happened around like the Will Smith and Jada thing, mm-hmm. Jada's hair. Jada has alopecia. And it was just like, Black women and Black women's hair have always been the butt of the joke. Right. And so I'm watching us reclaim, Black Lives Matter, the movement started to happen, which, by the way, y'all, it's not a trend. Black Lives Matter is not a trend. It's not just an organization. It's literally our lives. Mm-hmm. When I say Black Lives Matter, I'm not talking about an organization. I'm literally talking about Latisha, Lachey, Ellis. I'm talking about the Black people in your life that you love. And so the movement happened, and conversations in the Black community start happening, and we started to tear down certain things. We're wearing our natural hair more. We're also not shaming each other. We're claiming back our styles and whatnot. And one of the biggest things were bonnets. And the beauty about it too is because like I'm an old school lesbian. I'm old school. I am a millennial stud who has the old school thought of what masculinity was. So I've been unpacking that and unlearning toxic masculinity. Sure. And one of them was wearing bonnets, taking care of my hair. Because just like my little Black boys and little Black men, I too was just walking around hoping a girl would do my hair. And And it was like, what was crazy is the day I started to grow my hair was the moment I realized I didn't know how to do it. I was never taught how to take care of my natural hair because of the hatred. We don't know how to take care of our hair because we were never taught. The same reason why white people with really curly hair don't know how to take care of their hair, because once again, the hatred for us bleeds. There was something that this Black woman on TikTok said. She's like, hurt people hurt people. White supremacy and racism doesn't just hurt people of color. It also hurts you.
Mm-hmm.
You know, their hatred for your own curly hair comes from the fact that, guess what? They don't like anybody that doesn't have straight hair. And fun fact, bonnets, back in the day, everybody wore a bonnet. It wasn't specifically for Black women. Literally, it was everybody knew to protect their hair. But after a while, a certain group stopped wearing them, and one demographic was only known for wearing them. And then next thing you know, bonnets became for, Black people, for Black women. And what a lot of people don't know is the Tingin law. And the Tingin law, I believe I'm pronouncing it wrong, or is it Tigon, something like that.
Okay.
And if you growing up in school, when you were learning about Black history, in February, the 1 month where they play the same Martin Luther King cartoon, get on, back of the bus. When remember seeing pictures of enslaved Black women and their hair was always tied up? You ever remember seeing that? Where there were always wraps around their heads. You never really saw their hair.
Right.
Almost giving off a mammy type feel. That was because the Tingin law was passed because white women were so afraid of their husbands sexually assaulting Black women due to our hair being like, turning them on, making the men insanely wild. And so a law was literally passed that forced Black women to cover up their hair.
Wow.
And even in the 70s, Black women had to wear wigs working in hospitals because of their hair. And so we're reclaiming this. And so we're wearing bonnets now. And I remember I started taking care of my hair, and I was like feeling my, I call it healing my Black girl joy. I have decided that I'm going to lock my hair up when I turn 35. But before I do that, for a good 5 years, I am going to have the experience of Black girl joy that I didn't get to have when I was a child. I'm going to love my hair. And when I got my first bonnet, right? When I got my first bonnet, man, when I tell you, I got 4 different colors. And it was like, I had felt so beautiful and so strong in my femininity and my masculinity and my Blackness. And it was like reclaiming something, reclaiming us, the stereotypes that come with Black women having bonnets in their hair. And it's like, this bonnet also is a Supreme Court justice. This bonnet was also a first woman. This bonnet was also the first Black woman astronaut. This bonnet writes poems. This bonnet teaches. I literally go into juvenile detention centers and wear my bonnet when I teach.
I love that.
And it's, oh God. And it's just like removing that shame, removing the negative connotation. I am brilliant. I am creative. I am talented. I am beautiful. I am all these things in my bonnet. And it was just like, it's kind of funny because I have been trying to write that poem for a good 2 months. Okay. Let me tell you, for 2 months. And the only lines I had was, I look ghetto in my bonnet, ratchet in my bonnet. People think I only speak Ebonics in my bonnet. And that was it. I couldn't get past that. And then I write Shakespeare, but I'm Black in my bonnet. I'm beautiful in my bonnet. I write Shakespearean sonnets in my bonnet. And then I was like, all right, well, can't think of anything else. And literally 2 days before the show, like this flow of creativity. Actually, a lot of the poems that I read were written in 2 days because ADHD.
There you go.
Um, and I had like written all of it. And it's just like, it's one of those poems that when I read it to myself, I begin to cry. The thing about being a poet, by the way, I keep calling you babe because like, I see Archibald so bad because it just makes me think of a movie. But what do you want me to call you? What should I call?
Arch is great.
Arch?
Yeah.
I like that. Ooh, it's so cute. Look at you, Arch.
Oh, thanks.
But fuck, I forgot. Oh yeah, the poems. So like I had written them. Oh yeah. The thing about being a poet, Arch, is that if your poems don't move you, they won't move anybody else. A poet writes because they have to. A poet writes for themselves, and we just happen to share it with the world. I remember this Black woman poet, I can't remember her name, but she said in one of her poems, she was like, it was an intersectional poem. It was amazing. And she was talking about, it was like two poems in one. She was talking about being a black person and then also being a woman, and like just talking about the problems of being a woman and the problems of being black, and at the end, like the problems in the world. And she said, people are so tired of us talking about it, of us writing about it. Talking about it. Imagine how us poets feel that we have to write it. And I didn't do that line justice, but it was just like, we don't have a choice. You don't have a choice not to write. And so when a poet writes, a poet is writing a poem initially just for themselves. And if they share it, they share it. And if they don't, they don't. Poetry, healing is like poetry, and poetry is like the truth. It hurts. You like that? It hurts. And just like Pharrell said, the truth will set you free, but first it will piss you off. Healing, yeah. Healing hurts. And sometimes healing pisses you off, just like poetry, just like the truth.
Right.
Poetry is being truthful to yourself. If music allows you to express how you feel, poetry forces you to confront it, to understand it, to speak it, to look at it, to go through it. And it's just like, so writing, you do it because you have to. If anybody who's writing just for the ahs and ahs, that poem is not good. That poem, that you're just writing for the sheer gasp of jaws. And really, at the end of the day, no one's healing. When a poet, that's my biggest thing, is that poets who have really good pieces are like, you hear a poet, hear a poem and it's really good. To know why that poem is good is because the process it took for that poet to write it meant that they were breaking down so bad that finally they were forced to confront it, walk through it, hold its hand, take it to dinner, take it to therapy, and deal with it, and then work through it and put it on paper. Any poem that a poet reads is due to the simple fact that they finally had to crack open their own healing. So that's what it is. It's me writing a poem about bonnets was due to the fact that I had to deal with how much hatred was in me because of my hair. Because I didn't have the C2 hair, I didn't have curly hair. I wasn't light skinned. I am a dark-skinned Black woman with kinky, coily, curly hair. And me writing about bonnet was me sitting there doing the fact that up until 5 months ago, I hated myself. I hated my hair. it always looked like a Brillo pad. I was like, it's either good, it's not growing, it's not doing this, it's all these things. And then at the end of the day, it was like, no, my hair is beautiful. My hair defies gravity. My hair absorbs the sun. But I had to put that on paper and cry and realize that in order to heal was me facing the fact that I had internalized hatred for myself as a Black woman. Mm-hmm. And so when I read Bonnet, it's not just for me. It's for my mom who wore wigs all my life with the hazel eyes, who looked nothing like me, but I am I'm her spinning image. When I read Bonnet, it's about the Tingent laws and how Black women were forced to cover up their hair, and the hair and protective styles that we were called ghetto, the aesthetics, everything. I read Bonnet as a way to heal. And it's just like, that's why it means so much. It means so much because it was me sitting there calling myself pretty. That's what Bonnet is. It's me sitting there calling myself pretty and talented and wonderful and amazing. And you have this beautiful, soft hair and you need to protect it with this bonnet. And we're going to color coordinate because we bad bitches. And that's what bad bitches do. And, and so like, it really is just with all poetry. There's a poem that I did that I didn't get to do at the show. And I might actually do it for this. But in there, I said something about, it's about writing poetry. And one of the lines is about dealing to the fact that from the age of like 9 to 17, I thought I was born in the wrong body. I thought I was supposed to be born a boy, a man. And I remember just struggling with my identity. Am I a stud? A girl, I want girls to like me. Let me put on tight pants and perfume. And then, because girls love the way other girls smell. And then Axe came out. You remember that? You remember that fuck boy the bound chick are wow. And I'm watching girls, they're not chasing boys down the hall, but they're breaking their necks. And all of us lesbians going through the Ellen DeGeneres stage where we're wearing masculine looking clothes. They're masculine, but they're feminine looking still. They're colorful button ups and colorful shorts. And it's like, it took me like starting to love myself and learn myself that I realized it wasn't the simple fact that I thought I was transgendered. It was because of the fact that I hated being in a Black woman's body. I hated the hatred for Black women, for dark-skinned Black women, for having hips and, up until the 80s, until Sir Mix-a-Lot. Remember, the thing that was desired was flat butts, small butts. I remember you can watch movies where it's just like, oh my God, my ass looks fat. And it's like, you'll watch a movie now. It's like, oh my God, does this make my ass look fat? I need it to, it's like, it's such a change. And it's like, it wasn't until Sir Mix-a-Lot came out with this anthem, I Like Big Butts, as an ode to Black women. But then we become we were already sexualized and fetishized, but it's just like, all right, we like these parts of you, but we don't like them on you. And there is a unique type of insecurity that Black girls go through. There was a study done because most Black girls, like me, Black women who grew up in white spaces, boys didn't look at us, girls didn't look at us. We're, dark skin. And so there's a study where it's like, and I've had it where if I date somebody, because I don't care what you look like. I go into Baskin Robbins. If they're serving you, I'm taking it. Spoonful, whatever. But when I dated somebody outside my race and they tell me how pretty I am, I'm still shocked because I'm like, you think I'm like, you really find me attractive? And it was due to the fact that when they were talking about blondes versus brunettes, Black girls were never part of that discussion.
Right.
And it's like our male counterparts, Black boys in high school had no problem getting girlfriends. They were running through them like water. Boom. He blanked and Trayvon's got another girlfriend. You just broke up with Bethany. And it's like, it was because of the simple fact that we are the standard of beauty, but not the beauty standard. And so it's just like we grow up thinking we're not pretty. We don't think we're pretty because nobody else wanted to date us. And it's because we grew up in spaces where they didn't like the way we look. They wanted the light-skinned girls, the red bones, the curly hair. And so I realized it wasn't that I was trans. It wasn't that I even wanted, like, I wanted a flat chest and I like posed and whatever. But it was due to the fact that I thought life would be easier if I was a Black man.
Mm-hmm.
That maybe if I was a man, I'd be more attractive. I'd be more accepted because even there's colorism, but dark-skinned Black men, like they still get sought after. And it's like, and that's the conversation. That's colorism. And like, that's a whole different conversation in the Black community that we're having. But, and colorism affects everybody. But it was just like, I didn't like my hips because of how big they were, because I got made fun of them. I didn't go outside and get darker because we're, being now. I love this movement where now it's like Black people, we're just waiting. We can't wait till the sun comes out. We can't wait until it turns our skin into this beautiful dark cocoa bead. But before then, we were hiding. My hair was perm. I wish I had lighter eyes. I wish I was attractive, and it wasn't. And it was the simple fact that I hated being a Black girl. I hated being a Black girl. Mm-hmm. Not being Black, but being a Black girl. And, years of working on myself. And I went to Gay Pride when I was 18, and I saw all these beautiful, gorgeous women with all these masculine looking women. And I was like, I can do this. This is who I am. And so like, I remember cutting my hair off and starting to wear men's clothing the way I wanted to. And I felt great. And I started to be like, because I love being a woman. I love my body. And I was like, all right, cool. I'm accepting myself. But it wasn't until 5 months ago that it hit me, unpacking all this trauma, unpacking all the stereotypes and colorism and texturism and fetishism and all these things that I realized I didn't want to be a boy. I just didn't want to be I just didn't like being a Black girl because nobody likes Black girls. We're seen as strong, and that's not a compliment. Stop calling Black women strong. We're strong. It's almost becoming an insult now. Because if you say that we're strong, that means that it's okay to drag us through the mud because we'll persevere. And if you say we're strong, it almost emasculates us. I went to all queer birthday party. And so emphasis, queer, right? Boom. Okay. We got the gays, the theys, and everybody in between. Mm-hmm. And there was these group of like 6 queer white people in the girls' bathroom, and I'm assuming they were all women except for one. I didn't know. They correct me towards the end, but we'll get to that. And so like they've been in the bathroom about 30 minutes, so I go into the bathroom to go use it. I go pee. I come out. They're chilling on the sinks like cool kids. And I was like, hey, can I wash my hands? And one of the girls with blonde hair looks up and goes, are we in the right bathroom?
Wow.
And it was like, what? I'm like, I turned around and said, I'm a girl. Don't worry. And the I believe it was a trans man was just like, I'm not, I'm a guy. I just came in with them. That's fine. I don't care. But this biracial girl walks up to me after, and she was like, I am so sorry that just happened. Because it was her friend. I was like, it's fine. And it was one of those moments that Black people, that we all have, and especially as a Black woman, as a Black lesbian, as a Black stud, that, we swallow it and we deal with it, we forget it. And then the next day it bothered me. I was the only Black stud. I was the only Black masculine woman there. I was a Black stud. Mm-hmm. And it was like, you have been chilling in the women's bathroom for 20 minutes. There is no urinal in sight. Mm-hmm. You have a man with you. But it was when I walked in, that's when you were confused. And it was just like, oh, because you're Black and masculine, you have to be a man. Because if you see me, you feel me, like I know that my energy is so strong. I have amazing masculine energy. It's uncanny. Okay. Listen, I will wear a bra and they will still mistake me for a guy. And I realize it's not because I look like one, it's because I just have, I am an alpha male. I'm kidding. That's gross. That's gross. But like I have amazingly strong masculine energy. And so it didn't feel like one of those moments. It didn't feel like one of those nice moments where it's just like, oh, they mistake me for a guy and I can use that privilege. Because guess what? If I get mistaken for a man, even as a Black man, I'll take what I can get. Okay. Well, hello, sir. Oh, hi. Oh, sure. I'll walk in front of you. Thank you. I ain't gonna correct you. My pronouns are she and her, but in this moment, I'm Mr. And but it wasn't even that. It was literally, you have to be a man because you're Black and masculine, because you're dark skinned. And it's like, that's what happens to the dark skinned Black women. We get emasculated, calling us strong. And so it's just like writing that poem, the poem where I talk about it, like calling it out. Like, I did not like being a Black girl. And now I love being a Black woman. I love it. But it took 29 years. It took 30 years for me to finally realize it wasn't the hatred for my female body. It was the hatred of being a Black woman, of being in 5th grade with hips and getting made fun of because my hair was a little bit more nappy and wasn't as soft and curly as my light-skinned sister. I remember when I was 7 years old, right? I was at my cousin's house, and my little sister, LaShawn, she is light-skinned. At the time, she's like really light-skinned. She has really pretty highs. She has like a really curly hair. She has almost a raspberry tint to it. And I'm 7, we're 3 years apart. So she has to be like, I don't know how math works, 4, whatever. And it's like 9:00 at night. And we're standing at this guy comes to my cousin's door, and me and LaShawn are standing there. Oh, Sean's sitting down. I don't know what the hell she's doing, but I'm standing there because I'm nosy. And I remember him making eye contact with me and then looking at my little sister. Now, mind you, this was creepy. Now in hindsight, I realized that was gross because you shouldn't have been looking at her like that. But he looked at me, looked at my little sister, and then looked at my cousin Shalimar and said, that little girl's going to be a dime when she grows up. Talking about my little light-skinned sister. And my mom was very big on telling me how beautiful I was. Like, I have confidence for real. And that is because of Benita Ellis. Like, straight facts, no cap. My mom was telling me I was beautiful every day. But it was that moment at 7 years old that I that was put in my head that I was never going to be pretty. That I was never going to be pretty like my sister. He looked at me, looked at her, and pointed to my little sister and said she would be a dime when she grows up. Wow. And that was the first time right there I had just been known like, oh, wow. Am I ugly? Am I ugly? And then I walked with that. And it stayed with me. It stayed with me in elementary school when they would say terrible racial things or colorist things. It walked with me in high school. And so like, it's just like, and that loops back to intersectionality.
Mm-hmm.
And why it's so important to hear these stories, and when these poets allow it, and why it's so important to write poems that move you. Because you, who I'm pretty sure am not wearing a bonnet, Arch, that poem you loved, and it was Black joy. Mm-hmm. And you could understand the joy and the proudness that came from that. It affected you. My poem affected you. My poem about being a Black woman wearing a bonnet did something to you. And that right there in itself is healing. That right there in itself, you and I healed in different ways, but we healed. Mm-hmm. Something in us started healing. Something in us started to grow. And that's all because I sat there wearing my bonnet, listening to Brown Skin Girl over on repeat, crying, thinking about my aunties and my grandma and my sisters and the people we call ancestors, even though it wasn't that long ago. And just being like, whew, I'm sorry, I'm thinking about it now. You know, when you get to hear words like skin just like pearl, you know, our pigment matches the earth that gives life. Being told that we change the energy when we walk into the room. That is healing. That is love. That is accepting the fact that Latisha didn't like or know who. It wasn't that I hated myself. I didn't know who I was because the world told me who I wasn't. And at 7 years old, some Black guy looked at my light-skinned sister and said she would be pretty and didn't even say a word to me. And that's what it feels like for a lot of dark-skinned Black women who wear their bonnets, who go to work, who have to water themselves down to be more pliable. And so that's why bonnet is so important. That's why it's one of my favorite pieces, because every time I read it, I'm healing over and over and over. And yeah, so there's that. Sorry.
No, that's okay. That's awesome. And yeah, I loved that poem. So thank you for sharing all that. Well, so I would love to talk about your book, because you have written a book of poetry entitled Raw Poetry Made from Scratch, which I loved reading. Can you talk about, I mean, I know you've talked already a bit about the process of what it's like to write, mm-hmm. A poem, but, putting all these poems together, getting it published. What was that experience like?
Oh, wow. So a woman named Heidi Arnold, shout out Heidi. She was my interpersonal communications teacher. And she was the reason why I'm talking to you right now. We did a prompt and I wrote in these little bubbles, and she was like, this could be a poem. You're a poet. Write some shit. And I was like, all right, bet. And so all these pieces came from me writing in her class. All those poems that are that's in that book came from me writing most of them came from me writing in class and whatnot. And so when I got out, she was like, we gotta publish your stuff. And as much as I dislike Jeff Bezos, who is sending us into late stage capitalism, mm-hmm. The crazy part is that Amazon has so many good things. Why does he have to be a human dragon? Because Amazon offers free publishing. And so you can go publish a book and they take a percentage and you get a percentage and it's like, boom. And so the back of the book is, hold on, I'm looking at it. So that picture that's on the back, was taken that day when we were getting and publishing the book, because it was like, we need a cover about the offer. And so I'm sitting there in my Sinclair hoodie, leaned over, like, smiling. And and it was just like the cover, which is funny because the cover is a Van Gogh painting, and I didn't know that.
I didn't either until I read your your book, and then I didn't know it was a Van Gogh painting. I wouldn't have guessed that, but sorry, I didn't interrupt.
Oh, no, please don't. Yes, don't talk. And I was like, yeah, well, because of the situation. So like the reason why I went to prison, when I was 20 years old, I took a .22 revolver and I shot myself in the chest. I was committing suicide. There's a lot of stuff that goes into it, but like they should have sent like, there's always conversations and like people are just like, you should fight it and whatever, but things happen for a reason. But I went to prison for that, felonious assault. Not on myself though, but it was kind of poetic justice in a sweet way, because there's this picture of Van Gogh that I didn't know was a Van Gogh painting until like 3 months after the book was published. And what did Van Gogh do? He killed himself. And it was just like, I got to be here. I got to see my work be published. I am what happens when the bullet misses Van Gogh's heart. Wow. I am alive. I am alive. And so when I look at that cover, I'm in awe because I'm alive, and I get to read my book, and I get to be on podcasts with some cool guy named Arch who talks about reading it and tells me how much he loves my poetry. And it still feels unreal, dude. It still feels wild. You know what I mean? To have those conversations and to people just be like, oh, wow, tell us about this. Tell us about this. What inspired you here? Da, 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 da. And it's just like, this is so real. This is so cool. I'm a cool guy. But yeah, so it was pretty smooth. And by smooth, I mean I made Heidi do all of it, mostly because my brain scares me. I had just got out of prison, okay? I was not about to do all that extra stuff on the computer. I still don't do it. Should I? Yes. Will I? Probably not.
Yeah.
But so yeah, it was super cool. I recommend anybody who wants to write a book, until we topple the system,
right?
Use Amazon.
Well, and you have a great quote. Well, I'm saying it's a great quote because I liked it, but it's yours. But when you were talking about Van Gogh, and it really resonated with me because I suffer from bipolar disorder, and you said he was a man in love with his passion and a bit mad, but aren't we all a little mad? Which I loved that. So yeah, I knew I was going to love the rest of the book when I didn't even get past the first page, and I was already, resonating with me. So, but the second poem in your book is titled "I Am From," and in that you paint a really vivid picture of what your childhood was like. And I'm wondering if you could talk a little bit about that childhood and maybe, how that helped shape you into the person you are today.
Yes. So that's the poem, the I Am From poem. It's the first poem I ever written when I was incarcerated. That was from the writing prompt. So the sheet was 5 bubbles, and it said sight, hear, taste, sound, and touch. And it was like, where are you from? But in the senses. And I was like, all right, I can fucking do this, whatever. So I write the stuff down. And I remember Hyde just like, wow, this is really good. The way I had wrote it. And so like the first half of the poem was all in the bubbles. What you're reading were in bubbles. Like like the sentences were just sentences. And she was like, you should compartmentalize this motherfucker and she didn't talk like that, but in my head she does. She was like, compartmentalize this motherfucker and turn this motherfucker to a poem. So I remember taking it back and taking them out the bubbles and just going through it and just thinking about where I'm from. And so I'm a teacher. Like, as I said, I teach for writers in residence. The director is Zachary Thomas. He's incredible. If anybody, we are looking for mentors who are serious in helping us with reentry, with kids who are coming out of the juvenile detention center who are going to need help. If you are down, please, I will put the writers in residence email out. I'll say it now. Boom. So Latisha will remember it. Writers in residence at gmail.com. Please send it to Zach. We are looking. We need help. We're trying to end that prison, that school to prison pipeline. And if we can stop it by the juvenile center, we're doing great. So anybody, please reach out. But it's an amazing organization. And I've been so blessed and so honored by Zach, who just gave me this opportunity to go in and teach poetry and teach these kids and teach not kids, young adults, because we're not raising children, we're raising adults.
Right.
And so these young adults, and teaching them how to express themselves and understand in different ways. So when I did the poem, I Am From, they didn't know that it was me. I didn't put my name on there. So as they're reading this poem, and a lot of things are resonating with the kids. And some of them are like, I know him. I know this guy. I feel like I grew up with this dude. And it's just perfect. It was, what was even funny is because it was like, a lot of them assumed that it was a guy who wrote this poem, which is just like, also like, hey, Black girls grow up like this too. And I remember one of my students, my college students, she was trying to connect with the poem. You know, if you read the poem, not a lot of non-Black people grew up like that. From you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. It says in the poem, strong Black mothers. So like, boom. And before I go on, what did you feel like when you what resonated with you with that poem? Like what stuck out to you? What made you feel?
You know, I don't know. It was just, to me, it was just so vivid, the descriptions. And I will say I have a terrible memory, so it's
oh no, you're good. You're good.
Stuff is not great, but I think that's what stuck out to me the most was that, you know, it was just very vivid, descriptive. But without necessarily like, you know, a ton of words, I still felt like I knew what, you know, it was like a bit growing up, you know, in where you grew up.
Yeah. Thank you so much. I didn't mean to just throw you on the spot, but, or did I? And so like with her, she said that she's like, we all grew up with violence. And so like some type of violence. So like, that's what kind of resonated with me was the poem. And like, she didn't know I wrote it, but like in my mind, I was like, there was nothing violent about that poem. But then my other students, my residents, because we call them residents in there, was like, I didn't see that violent. Nothing about this poem was violent. You know what I mean? The lines of like smelling collard greens and cornbread and bikes laid out in the park. In the yard. It was like, it wasn't violence. It was home. It was love. Mm-hmm. You know, this community is what made us, is what made me. The space, I say I grew up in white spaces as in like schools and stuff, but like I grew up in predominantly Black neighborhoods, but my mom didn't let me ever go outside because, you know, she'd be wilding. But like the times that I get to go out and hung out with other kids and just the beauty about it and how listening to Nelly. I remember coming home at like 14 and underlay, mama, iya, just came out. I think I was 12. And I remember it was like one of the most beautiful Black experiences, like beautiful moments where I just like, I came on and like, because my mom doesn't leave the door open. We don't like leaving doors open because we don't like bugs in our house. I'm a vegan. I am plant-based. Mm-hmm. All right. I believe everything deserves a life. However, mosquito, gnat, and fly, you enter the vicinity, you got to die. That's just what it is. But I was getting off the bus and it was just one of those good days. And didn't have them a lot. And my mom was doing my cousin Shirley's hair and my cousins and my aunt was over there. And like, as soon as I walked up, they were playing the song. It started and they were like, wait a minute now. And like, we're all just like singing it and we're in unison. And my dad's cooking chicken and macaroni and cheese and the kitchen just smells good and the vibe is just good. And it's 76 degrees outside and the air is nice and everybody is just vibing. Nobody is beefing. And it was just, this is how I grew up. Listening to the ice cream man and running outside, asking my dad for $2 so I can get one of those raggedy ass red, white, and blue popsicles. They need to stop making that motherfucker. But also getting a bag of chips and some pop from the ice cream machine. Like when I talk to people who haven't grown up in neighborhoods like that, or my white counterparts, when I would say like getting pop and chips off the ice cream truck, they're just what? They'd be wild, like what? They so yeah. So yeah, sometimes they sold barbecue, but that's a whole different ice cream truck. And it was just like this culture, this beautiful pride of where I grew up. Yes, I grew up in a place where being 21 was too old to die too soon. All right. If you made it past 21, you were ancient. Yes, I grew up where the only colors allowed in your crown box were red and blue. But when those colors were allowed to mingle, when the fire hydrants were cracked open, when I got to ride my bike with my friends and go to their houses and go get some Kool-Aid, the red kind, by the way, if you know, you know. We're not talking about cherry and we're not talking about strawberry. If you invite me to your house and you say you have red Kool-Aid and it ain't fruit punch, we're fighting. We're fighting. This fruit will punch you. This fruit will punch you. If it's not fruit punch, you will get punched by a fruit. And just like no violence, but kind of violent. But it was just like that when she asked us to do those boxes, all those things just flooded back to my head. Those memories, of being, oh snap, I'm sorry. Those memories of just being at peace and having a childhood when the moments weren't too dark. Like that's, where drug dealers took care of the communities because the government didn't want to. Where my mom was working 3 or 4 jobs and making sure we had something to eat. We're Gen X, millennials, and Gen Z are the first generations to go to therapy. Like, we're going to therapy. We're unpacking things. We're unlearning trauma. We're not allowing the cycle of abuse, of self-hatred to go on. My quote for my life is, I refuse to die hating my life. I'm tired of I grew tired of being one of those people who are just like, death, yes. I don't want to do this no more. I don't want to live a life like that. My self-care is every day. Self-care shouldn't be, I'm going to take a bubble bath and eat ice cream. No, self-care should be every day. It should be you choosing to take care of you in some way every day, because self-care is not something for you to escape life. Make your life not escape. Like, I try to live my life. I'm not saying this right. How am I saying this? I want to live a life that I don't have to escape from.
Right.
And that's what self-care is choosing to take care of you so you don't have to escape the life that you're living. I don't want to break from my life. I love living my life. Will I have bad days? Yes. Will I break some days? Yes. But I don't want to escape my life because I take care of me and my mental health and my health and my everything. I choose me. I choose to be kind to me. And we're doing that. We're breaking these cycles. We're hurt people. And that's what our parents, every human that has walked the earth has been traumatized up until this point. And so writing that poem, Where I'm From, reminds me of like the beauty of the things that weren't trauma based, but there's still things to work on. I'm proud of where I'm from, and it made me who I am. But at the same time, I am better in spite of it. Mm-hmm. I'm better because of it and in spite of it. And it's just beautiful. And that's why it was those memories were so vivid. Oh, that's why I was bringing it up. So my mom, and so hurt people. And my mom was abusive. And it took a lot of healing to learn that my mom was abused too. My mom was traumatized. My mom was hurt. And I'm unpacking that. And writing that line about mothers going hungry so we could eat trauma. In that poem, I realized my mom was living in that small line. My mom was living her own trauma while making sure we weren't trying her best to make sure we didn't get traumatized.
Right. She
missed meals, but we weren't going to go hungry. And it's just like, I don't know. It's just beautiful, that poem, because it reminds me of why I am who I am. And at the same time, I am who I am in spite of it, in spite of the stereotypes, in spite of the pain, in spite of the oppression, in spite. At the end of the day, I come from a people who will always persevere. And I am from is a love letter about persevering. It's a love letter about just enjoying the simple things in life, even when we're told we're not allowed to have that either.
Right.
You know what I mean? I am from where you're taught that you have to dribble a ball or wrap a line to make it out the ghetto. But I am also from strong Black moms and drug dealers who, was serving our community with drugs, but they were using that money to put back into us. It's an insidious cycle, nonetheless.
Right.
But it was us looking out for each other, our community looking out for community. It is a love letter to my childhood. It is a love letter to my neighborhood, to the people I grew up, that I love you and thank you. Thank you for allowing those aromas and those sounds to be a part of my existence. And because of that, I'm going to do better to where moments like that aren't moments, but just how children will live their life, smiling. I want, instead of fire hydrants, I want more pools in the ghetto.
Right.
I want, instead of moms having to go hungry, I want better childcare and better situations that help moms not have to struggle and miss meals. I want communities where kids, young adults, don't have to become a track star, an NBA star, an NFL star, a SoundCloud star to succeed. You can become a poetry teacher. You can become a mentor. You can become a fireman. You can be anything in spite of this. It is a love letter to thank you. It's an ode to thank you for making me, for help shaping me who I am. But now it's my turn to shape you. I want a poem that I want years from now, when a kid writes a poem where I am from, they're able to say all the things I said, and at the same time, none of the things I said. I want their poems to be nothing but of joy, of sounds and senses that are being experienced, not bullets hitting the ground, not, you know, being 7 years old and you're laying on the floor with your babysitter because there's a drive-by going on.
Right.
I want kids to write, I want young adults to write poems about how they saw their friends get old, about how they see their friends walk across the stage at a graduation of high school, college, not college, whatever, just succeeding. I want all the best parts from where I am from to just be the poem. And so like that, yeah, that's why it's yeah.
I love it. And I'm really glad too that you shared that saying that you refuse to die hating your life, because I think I'm going to adopt it because I like it a lot. So,
and thank you, by the way, for sharing about your mental health and like the whole Van, and like understanding like the Van Gogh thing, like,
oh sure,
and just being open. So thank you, because a lot of people, you know what I mean, a lot of men need to hear like, hey, it's okay to have problems. Absolutely. Not problems, it's okay to not be okay.
Right. No, absolutely. Well, I'm probably going to have you back on again sometime because I have other questions I'd love to ask you. But
yes,
before you go, I'm wondering, could I get you to do maybe a reading of your choice of your work?
If you insist.
If I twist your arm a little bit.
Oh, you're twisting. It hurts a little bit. All right, here we go. Actually, I'll do a really short one that I just wrote, and then I'll do a regular one. But think you might like this. Where is it? Oh, okay. So this one's really small, and it's called I don't know what it's called. It says green, but I don't want it to be green. So it's untitled.
All right.
Down by the garden where the green grass grows, where roses are red and violets are blue, you and I sat in a tree thinking about KISSING. Just you and me, baby, above the treetops. I took your hand and tied our fingers into knots. Love like a nursery rhyme, a lullaby, a melody disguised as a story. Boom. There's that.
Beautiful. I love that.
Okay, so where is it at? Boom. There's a whole poets. Oh, okay. All right, I can do this one. It's called Poets Aren't Meant to Make People Happy. Poets are meant to make people see. That's a really long title. I might change that. Someone I love told me, you make everything a poem. And I was like, duh, I'm a poet. I look at things and see the beauty with words. I can't help that everything that drips from my lips are turned into a sonnet or a haiku or a manifesto, if you will. Okay, maybe I'm a bit dramatic. Maybe I'm a bit too much. Maybe I love hearing my own voice. But do you know what? What people don't talk about is how we sometimes refuse to write because it's just so fucking much. Constantly seeing yourself, the world, and having to talk about it is exhausting. The truth is exhausting. Sitting in your head, listening to words be crafted to fit the narrative of trauma and pain, because healing is so fucking tiresome. Because writing is truth, but lying feels good like toxic women. It feels good like sad songs on a rainy day. It feels good like making plans with someone you didn't want to, but instead of saying no, you just wait till the day comes and you cancel on them. But what doesn't feel good is constantly composing words and emotion as a modern symphony, but just one that you can't get out your head. Healing doesn't always feel good. Writing doesn't always feel good. Writing about leeches disguised as friends, sucking the joy out of you because they love the light when it's not them casting it, that they thrive in their own darkness and they use you only when they feel like seeing. Writing about how capitalism is killing the generation it thought it would provide for, but built on the back of Black and brown people because I had to win $1,000 at bingo just to pay my rent. And that is fucking ridiculous, that we have to pay for food to live, how slavery was never actually abolished because the 13th Amendment still exists, because once you're incarcerated, you lose your rights as a person. And it's funny how America has the highest percentage of incarcerated people. Writing about how I was so infatuated with a woman who didn't love me, but loved the idea of me, like touching me sometimes in private while living in straight spaces in public. Yes, I said infatuated because now I know that love and infatuation are non sequitur, cousins, not twins. I know what love is. I know how it tastes. It's raw and it's sweet and it's kind, but it isn't always nice. It fills me up to the brim and then over pours because I no longer am the one drinking from an empty jug. Writing about the horrors that happening in Ukraine while also touching the fact that if your skin is lighter than a paper bag, they didn't let you leave the country, forcing Black people yet again to fight another white man's war. Writing about biracial children no longer seeing their Blackness because white people have culturally appropriated so much that they become racially ambiguous, and that somehow this term white passing has been created. That is because there are more people that look like us in our families than there is in white families. And we all know why, but we pretend to not discuss it. Writing about how I hated myself, thinking from the age of 12 to 19 that I had been born in the wrong body, when really it was internalized hatred for being a dark-skinned Black girl, being built like a Black woman. I didn't want to be a man. It just felt better. It just felt like being a Black man would be easier. People seem to really love Black men, Black boys. Maybe if I was lighter, maybe if my hair was less rough, maybe if my body was slender like an emo boy, maybe girls would look at me. Maybe they would find me pretty. Maybe somebody would date me. Writing about how I allowed myself to believe that I was okay after doing 7 years in prison from 20 to 28, listening to people be shocked about how I was so well adjusted as if I had never been locked up, like I had never spent 17 days in the hole by myself for 23 hours because I wanted to believe that it hadn't destroyed all the good parts of Latisha. And then one night, staring at the moon, I broke down in the arms of a person I sworn was the birth child of safety and love, and realizing that I am not okay. That I never stopped experiencing trauma even after I walked out the gates. That I haven't felt safe until that moment. That I had felt so alone until that moment. That I had been bitter. That I had been healing from wounds I chose to ignore. That I was winning battles in a war I did not know I was raging, healing. So we write to heal because you never stop healing, but that is the point, is to be healing. Write about truths that make you peel off the deceit that covers you in layers, tearing lies off like skinwalkers. Do you know why most of the best pieces were always written by poets in distress? Because by the time they wrote those poems, they were so broken that that was the only way to talk about it, to get to it and through it. See, poets, we don't own mirrors. Our poems are our reflections. Gaze at a few words and you'll see my image. You'll see the image of a poet in the distance. You can tell when we haven't written in so long, and then after we have, the pep in our step is lighter, our smile a bit brighter, because we have not only talked and walked with our trauma, but held hands and let the child born out of trauma cry in our laps and gently wipe their tears away. Told them that we love them and that they don't have to be strong anymore, that we got it from here, that we will protect you, that we will be our own parents, that we will be gentle with us now, that we will be kind with us now, that we will love all of ourselves now. See, as a poet, for you to expose the world, you have to expose yourself. To be a poet, You have to expose yourself to expose the world. Healing is like poetry, and poetry is like the truth. And just like Pharrell said, the truth will set you free, but first, it'll piss you off. That's the first time I read it out loud, so I'm sorry I messed up a lot.
No, it's okay. I loved it. Thank you so much. Yeah, that was awesome. Before I let you go, I would love to know what's the best way for people to follow you or purchase a copy of your book, and are you also going to be performing anywhere in the near future?
You're fucking awesome. You can follow me on Instagram at LatishaEllis.16. It's like that because that was the default name they gave me on Instagram, and also what I was doing. Also, you can find me on Facebook or Snapchat. Instagram, Facebook, or Snapchat. You can get my book off of Amazon. It's right now on sale for 68% off. You can get it for a whopping $3.84 because of capitalism. And I will be I will be at the next poetry slam. They just had one last night. They would just have one Sunday, so it's every other Sunday at the Dayton Poetry Slam at Yellow Cab Tavern. Check it out. It's the oldest poetry slam in Dayton. It is home. I also do story slams at Wild E. It's like the first Tuesday of every month at Wild E's Comedy Club. I will also be doing a speaking event for writers and residents up in Cleveland. And if you follow me on Instagram or Facebook, I'll put more information out there because I don't actually have it at the moment. But I will be selling some of my books and performing some of my pieces, and then just hopefully build from that where I'm doing a bunch of poetry all the time. And then you can just find me then. So
awesome, very cool. Aren't you on TikTok as well?
Oh my God, yes I am. And I am hilarious. Please come check out my TikTok. It's awesome. You're going to crack all the way the hell up. This is cool. That's just cool how you just did that. So yes, I'm on TikTok. I'm that guy Latisha on TikTok. Follow me, like, share, enjoy my comedy, enjoy the art and the time that it took to make those TikToks. Some of them took days. Wow. I'm kidding. I have ADHD. Some of them took 3 hours because I wasn't playing.
Right. Thanks so much for coming on to talk with me today. I really appreciate it, and I really look forward to seeing you perform again in the future.
Yes, and I can't wait to be back on the show, and I'm going to tell everybody about Discover Dayton and why they sleeping on my boy Arch, bro. Get your shit together, America.
Thank you.
Get it together. Thank you so much for having me on here, man.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you again. All right, that was my interview with Latisha Ellis, and as you can tell, she's a super talented poet and speaker, and it was an honor to talk with her. If you haven't had the privilege of seeing her perform in person yet, I highly recommend you do so. And if you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe, leave a review, and share it with a friend. I also just want to give you a heads up that I have an upcoming interview with Dayton Poetry Slam Master Link Schreiber coming out soon, so look out for that to learn more about the Dayton Poetry Slam. Thanks so much to all of you for listening, and stay funky, Dayton.